So PSG 1, Liverpool 0. So much to discuss from this game as we welcome in Jurgen Klinsmann. We'll be hearing from Jurgen a little bit later on in the show. I suppose, Stevie, the question is, how are you feeling?
Well, to be quite honest, I can't argue that PSG, over the course of the two games, have deserved to go through. You know, you can argue that Liverpool, certain periods, particularly in the game at Anfield we've just seen, could have changed the course of that. You know, the start of the game when Mo Salah's had two great opportunities. And in the second half, the majority of it, Liverpool pushing forward, getting in the final third, but just couldn't produce anything in the final third. But over the course of the two games, I certainly won't be complaining that the best team has gone through. And they deserve it. And they came back, and it was impressive how they came back in the injury time. You know, we said at the end of it, certainly talking during the end of that second half, it looked as though Liverpool were the stronger of the two. But as soon as that extra time, maybe it was the changes, but they looked strong. They looked stronger in the penalties. And again, I'll say it, they deserve to go through.
Yeah. We were talking about some of the rubbish we've seen this season, right across the board. This was very much not that. Great tie over the two legs, both teams going for it, and PSG obviously
it lived up to what we thought it might be. Nobody taking a back step, and it's hard to disagree with Stevie. They had 45 minutes in the second half where they were the more dominant Liverpool, but their final product was not good enough. Apart from that, they were, I wouldn't say dominated all the way through today, but PSG just cut them open in that first half at will whenever they won it back. Some of their football was excellent, and Liverpool looked vulnerable at the back. And, you know, I think for them it's a good job that they started the season like a rocket ship, and they've got this big gap in the Premier League, and they're probably going to win that at a canter, because they're starting to see a bit of tiredness, a bit of bad decision-making, and some of the guys that have carried them all season, like McAllister, like Gravenberg, like Salah, and one or two others, and dare I say even Virgil van Dijk, not looking like the players that they were, I think, maybe 6 weeks ago. Stevie mentioned it during the game. Van Dijk, who's been so calm and composed, lashed at several balls today when he wasn't under a lot of pressure. Mo Salah in the final third, not the kind of player. McAllister and Gravenberg, you know, getting caught on the ball. I mean, it was tight in there, don't get me wrong, and PSG, they pressurised. But my God, they are so tidy in the middle of the park. Vitinho, Neves, Fabian Ruiz, they got pace in the wider positions. Dembele can float about. And actually, defensively, they actually look relatively strong. And I think they've gone from being dangerous, as we thought they would be against this Liverpool team, to potentially finding somebody who's going to beat them.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's a long way to go, but nobody, maybe Bayern Munich, who have absolutely trounced Bayer Leverkusen, but if you look at Bayern Munich, their weaknesses defensively and the strength of this PSG side has gone forward. I thought it was a brilliant performance over two legs and extra time. You've got to give a lot of credit to Luis Enrique. He's got all the superstars have gone, and this is a team that's playing for each other. They're super tidy. Their football is fantastic. They're pacey. They can defend, and they're going to take some beating in this competition.
Yeah, young, entertaining, exciting side to watch.
You just look at their wide players. Dembele, when he gets out in the wide areas, or Kvaratskhelia, or Barcola on the other side. And those matchups, as we mentioned last week, were an issue for Liverpool in that first match, and they were an issue again today. So when you think of the totality over the two legs, the matchups on the outside were in favor of PSG. Offensively, Liverpool were not able to impact the game on the outside as much as PSG were able to do that on the other side. So we're talking about guys like Luis Diaz, like even Mohamed Salah, Diogo Jota. How many turnovers did those three guys in particular have today when they had a chance to actually get forward and go and create opportunities? So while Liverpool had a lot of the possession in the second half. Did they really create clear opportunities? Did we really see Mohamed Salah fully involved? Did we really see Luis Diaz being impactful? Did we see Diogo Jota being impactful? And the answer is no. And so when you think about those young players that you just mentioned and how dynamic they can be in the attack, that's why you like PSG so much, because in 1v1 situations, they can break you down, and then they have the talented players through the midfield. And surprisingly today in particular, I have to highlight a few guys. Guys like William Pacho, who may not be somebody that we would have talked about coming into this matchup. Sliding challenge here, sliding challenge there. Nuno Mendes, who we think can be a liability defensively, actually played really well. And Gigi Donnarumma, who I think we all agree allowed a soft goal in the first leg. Today came up with save after save after save. We can have questions of what PSG has been in the past. I don't think we can have any questions of what PSG is now, and they are indeed a threat in this tournament.
Jurgen, how big a statement was this from the French side?
I think it was a very impressive performance by Paris Saint-Germain tonight. I mean, we all kind of had the discussion, how will they come out at Liverpool, at Anfield Road? Will they try to attack, getting this one goal back as soon as possible? Will they just kind of speculate on counter breaks? Will they be more defensively? The performance overall by Luis Enrique's team was fantastic. They took the game back to Liverpool. It was a back and forth. It was a high intense game. And a couple of players, as Alejandro mentioned, they were standing out. A player like Mendes against Mo Salah, he had a fantastic game. Mo Salah didn't get into that game at all because he played against a Mendes that was trying to go forward too. He worked him down. He was always on him. Obviously Gigi Donnarumma, that was a fantastic performance by your goalkeeper. If you want to advance in these knockout phases, you need a goalkeeper of a top class. And this is Gigi Donnarumma. He's one for the big moments, and especially when it gets down to a penalty shootout, then you want to have a goalkeeper on your side that is able to save one or two penalties in that shootout, which he did. Again, I was at the Italy win in the European Championships a couple of years ago. Obviously,
All right, Jurgen, we don't need to go over that.
He's meant to be for these moments. But you got to give Luis Enrique a huge compliment, because the Paris Saint-Germain that we knew from the past, with the superstars from the past, there always were problems, not only maybe on the chemistry side, but all these obviously problems on the too much attack, not enough defending, and always one coach after another tried it out. But Luis Enrique now builds a team there that matured. He builds a team that is balanced, and there's fighting spirit there. Everybody goes behind the ball when they lose the ball. I think Dembélé had a fantastic game, not only going forward and threatening the Liverpool defense all the time.
And all of a sudden, the two centre-halves, in particular Konate, they're struggling. And so it's been about small details, but about decision-making. Van Dijk doesn't push in with him. That's a risk. He allows the possession far too easy. And all of a sudden, they're behind in the game. And little things like that, I think, have started to creep into Liverpool's game. Not just here, but in the league. And as I said at the start of the show, fortunate for them, they were the best team by far for 6 months, because they are not doing the things as well as they did 2 or 3 months ago.
And that's the difference between winning and losing. A decision. Because a centre-back is never going to gamble by stepping out and leaving a hole unless he thinks he really has to. Because Van Dijk's thinking, OK, even if he gets it, there's a back four there in place. So rather than him stepping out and exposing himself and exposing a hole, his decision, which a centre-back will make 99 times out of 100 without leaving the hole, he will do that. But there's one thing I should say about PSG that really surprised me. If you look at this PSG side on paper, there does not look anywhere on that field like there's a leader. There's not. But you know what? In both legs, they closed the ball as a unit at the right time, all the time. And that takes communication. Yes, it's good coaching, but it takes communication. And so unless you're communicating, that doesn't happen. So that really surprised me, because look at this lineup. Who are you turning around and saying, well, that guy's the leader? We can say Van Dijk's definitely one of Liverpool's leaders, because they look as though they've got a couple. That 11 there doesn't look like it's got a leader. But I'll tell you what, It has.
But they're a team, aren't they?
They're a team. They're a unit.
And that's down
and they're
to
together.
that's down to Luis Enrique. That's down to these big decisions that when he went in there, I think he very much stressed to the ownership. He said, look, we need to get away from the mollycoddling the superstars to getting players that actually want to be here and want to be successful and want to work for each other. And until we do that, we're going to be pretty much an afterthought. You know, we're going to be in the news for all the wrong reasons and partying and superstars and egos and he's not happy with him and he doesn't talk to him in the dressing room. For the most part, he's got rid of that. And they're not a huge, big physical side either. You look at the middle of the park, Fabian Ruiz is probably the most physical and the biggest. You look at the front line, they're not the biggest and the most physical. But they've got 3 players that started in that front 3, and then they had Dewey and Gonzalo Ramos to come on. That's 5 players, you know, very, very talented players that he can rotate, and they are very dangerous because they can control games in the middle of the park. Ruiz is a good footballer. Vitinha is a fantastic footballer. Neves is, I think, very underrated. And when you can control the football, then you can get these other talented players in the forward area into the game, and that's why we saw them shine.
Jurgen, just explain the dynamic as to why losing one of the best players in the world has made this team better.
Well, because it opens up, you know, the air in the locker room that everybody can breathe. You know, sometimes when you have 1 or 2 superstars, or even sometimes it happens with overage players, that they still occupy a lot of the part of the energy cake, I called it always. You know, if they want 30-40% of the energy, this cake that you have, you know, they don't mean they just want to hold on to their power that they always had over the years. You know, that doesn't let the whole team breathe, or not to the extent that you have success in a Champions League where you need every single percent in order to be successful. I think what Luis Enrique now did is that, you know what, I want to build an identity within this team where they really believe everyone is as important as the other one. Well, when you have Messi or Neymar, you know, and Mbappe in your team, then it's too much alpha animals. I mean, obviously they claim their spots, they claim their space, you know, and the other ones, they're not getting any air to breathe. So Luis Enrique formed now a team, and you got to give him the biggest compliment here, that is, the players are there for each other. That they are certainly, getting back to the point of the leadership, there are players that are leaders. I mean, Donnarumma is a quiet leader, but he's 2 meters tall, you know, 6'5", 6'7".
Who the leader is in this team? Luis Enrique. What is the difference with not having Mbappe there? The power of Luis Enrique. Right. There is no question as to who the boss is in this team. It's not Mbappe going above Luis Enrique and talk to whomever about Luis Enrique and about the other players. It's Luis Enrique making the decisions, and everybody in that locker room knows who's making the decisions. And so if you want to be an impactful player, a difference maker for this team, the first thing that you got to do is listen to the guy. It's listen to Luis Enrique, because his plan is the one that is going to go forward. And if you want to be part of it, you better buy into it. If you don't, then you're out. That's what happens when you free up the locker room of the big personalities, of the superstar, whatever the case may be. You gave all the keys to Kylian Mbappe. That didn't quite work out. So let's go and do it Luis Enrique's way. And in Luis Enrique's way, what's clear to see from PSG when you watch them play against a team like Liverpool at Anfield, it's a team. In the end, this has to be a group effort in order for them to be successful. And they've all bought into it. And at the core of all of that, it's Luis Enrique.
What will Arne Slot be regretting? What will when he's looking back at these 2 legs, Stevie? Where do you think he could have improved? He could have changed things.
I don't think tactically or anything like that he will think about that. I think he might. You know, it's interesting. Last week he was talking about the reason how they've kept going is because of the training. Well, you can't argue that they're beginning to look a little jaded.
Well, that extra time was so weird because there was only one team in it.
Yeah, and so if there's one thing he'll be thinking about is how could I have done anything to make us a little bit fresher? Because with the amount of ball they had in the final third in this game, they really could and should have won, particularly that second half. But they didn't have that spark or that little bit of sting in their legs to overcome what was in front of them. and that's to do with fatigue. So I don't think tactically or the team he picked, I really don't see that as any reason why they got knocked out. They just got outplayed by a better side, and probably part of that reason is because Liverpool do, all over the field, look a little bit jaded.
I think they were shocked at how PSG pressed them in the first game.
But going into this game, they knew it. You know, you've experienced it, you've got away with it.
They got, but when you're given a let's be honest, it was a bit of a pasting in terms of a football game in Paris. When that happens to you, it puts you on the back foot a little bit. Even though you win the game, you think, Mike, I can't make a mistake. If I give the ball away, then Dembele and Barcola and Kvaratskhelia and all these players, they're just going to pounce on it. So I think that was a big punch in the nose for them in Paris that they haven't had this season. They've had the odd bad result, but they haven't been given a lesson on the field like that. And I think that just put them a little bit subconsciously on the back foot. And it happened to them again today with 2 or 3 1-on-1s in the first half. They've just hit a bit of a buffer at the wrong time. And if you do look at PSG, it's the opposite. And I don't think we're getting carried away with them at all.
They're second favourites behind Barcelona now to win it all.
And I wouldn't argue.
Rightly so.
I don't think we're getting carried away because from the turn of the year, they have been absolutely brilliant. If you look at progression, if you look at how they struggled in the early stages of this 36 group table, was it Girona and Atletico Madrid? I think these games, I think it was Atleti and Girona that they really, I think there was a Gazzaniga dropped the ball for Girona and that got them some points. Let's not forget they were at one point they were looking along with Man City that they might not actually get out at the bottom of this big table. And so what we've seen with this Enrique side is a progression from a team that started the season in Europe certainly, particularly average, but they sort of figured it out. They've got stronger and stronger and stronger. They've met their biggest match. They've come out of that smelling of roses and absolutely flying. And if they keep trajecting in this way, why can't they go on and win it? I mean, because there's nobody at the moment in Europe playing as well as this PSG side. I don't think so.
To your point about Liverpool and looking jaded, I think they thought, okay, we got our backsides handed to us last week, but this first 20 minutes at Anfield, they can withstand that.
Right.
They cannot hang on because we are going to be Liverpool at Anfield. It's electric. It's going to be another magical night. Not only did they withstood that first initial punch for Liverpool, they went and scored themselves. And that's sort of, I think at that point, if you're Liverpool and you had some doubts coming into this match, now those doubts come back and you go, oh, we gave it our best shot. We didn't score. Actually, they went on to score to the other side. That filled Liverpool with a whole lot of doubt that they had coming from last week. And you cannot just turn around and then, now we're going to be dynamic. Now we're going to be great. Now we're going to be explosive when the other team is the one knocking the ball around you.